tonight, Howard Dean fires his campaign chairman a day before an important primary, and there are questions about the future of his candidacy. Challenging the law in California, hundreds of gay couples from around the country rush to get married, as other states rush to stop them. We'll take a closer look. The multi-billion-dollar tax cheats out of reach of the IRS, but still getting paid by the Pentagon. It's your money. And Mel Gibson defends his controversial new film about the death of Jesus. An exclusive interview with Diane Sawyer.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Reporting tonight, Elizabeth Vargas.
Good evening. We begin tonight with presidential politics on the eve of a crucial primary in Wisconsin. Crucial because if it doesn't go well for Howard Dean, the former front-runner could be out of the race. On top of that pressure, the Dean campaign today suffered a second big shakeup in as many weeks when his national campaign chairman was fired. ABC's Dan Harris has the story now from Wausau, Wisconsin.
Only weeks ago, he was a formidable front-runner. But today, Howard Dean faced relatively small, sleepy crowds, concerns about the future of his campaign, and questions about the firing of his national campaign chairman, Steve Grossman. Dean let Grossman go after Grossman said publicly that he'd support John Kerry if Dean loses here in Wisconsin.
If John Kerry wants me on his team, I'll be happy to help him should Howard not win that nomination, that primary on Tuesday.
I absolutely don't feel betrayed by Steve Grossman. I consider him to be a friend. I consider him to have worked very, very hard for this campaign, including at times where we were not on the map.
11 days ago, the Dean campaign sent an email out to supporters saying Wisconsin would be make or break. Days later, Dean abruptly reversed himself, saying he'd soldier on regardless.
What would a campaign look like post-Tuesday if, as the polls indicate, you do lose by a significant margin?
Well, you'll have to find out on Wednesday.
But senior staffers are pressuring Dean to drop out after tomorrow's results. Some are already planning vacations. Dean is credited with galvanizing his party and pioneering online campaigns, a reputation some say is at risk if he stays in too long.
Do you worry that if you keep going past a certain point that you're going to jeopardize your legacy?
No.
Not at all?
Nope.
Behind the scenes lately, Dean's mood has been lighter.
Records root beer, the best.
He insists his swift fall has not been personally devastating.
My identity in my life doesn't depend on being President of the United States. What I'm determined to do with the rest of my political career is, which I expect to last for the rest of my life in one form or another, is to change the way this country does business.
Tomorrow night, Howard Dean will fly back home to Burlington, Vermont, where he will plot his next move. He pointedly told reporters today that it is too early to write his political obituary. Elizabeth?
All right, Dan Harris in Wisconsin. The Democratic frontrunner John Kerry campaigned there on the eve of tomorrow's primary. He focused not on his primary opponents, but on President Bush today, criticizing him for going to the Daytona 500 on Sunday. ABC's Kate Snow joins us from Green Bay. Kate, that shows Kerry's criticism shows that of Bush shows his campaign rapid response team is certainly up and running.
Oh, absolutely, Elizabeth. You know, they've learned from the failed presidential bid of Michael Dukakis that you have to fight back early and often and not be defined by the White House. To that end, he did criticize Mr. Bush today, saying that when he went to Daytona and said, "Gentlemen, start your engines," what he should have said is, according to Kerry, "America, let's get our economy working and put people back to work." Elizabeth.
Meantime, pressure is on to raise money for John Kerry. He lags far behind President Bush.
He does. You know, the president has raised more than $130 million. I asked a campaign person the other day, are they scared about that? Are they nervous? And he said, nervous? We're terrified. They know that they really can't compete when it comes to money. They've raised $7 million since January 1st, which is very good for Kerry, but it's only about 2/3 of what George Bush has raised. Over the weekend, they had Senator Ted Kennedy out for them, trying to raise even more money.
Pulling out all the help they can. Kate Snow in Green Bay, thank you. In our campaign notebook, President Bush made his 19th visit to Florida, the state that decided the 2000 election. He told workers at a factory that his tax cuts are fueling a nationwide economic recovery. Now to Haiti, where armed rebels are fighting to overthrow the government. At least 56 people have died since the latest uprising began 12 days ago, 3 today. ABC's Jeffrey Kaufman is in Port-au-Prince and has an exclusive interview with Haiti's President, Jean-Bertrand Aristide.
Rebels seeking to oust President Aristide's government began their attacks here 12 days ago. Since then, the rebellion has spread to a dozen other desperately poor cities and towns in the north. Today, in an interview with ABC News, President Aristide acknowledged that his country could be on the brink of a civil war.
My country has a crisis, and we want to solve that crisis through dialogue, negotiation, elections, and not to let it go as the opposition wants.
In recent weeks, the popular uprising against Aristide has gained momentum as several different opposition groups have emerged. All agree they want Aristide to go, but they do not agree on how that should be done. The armed rebels, many of whom were once loyal to the president, are vowing to fight until they reach Aristide's doorstep.
We try to get Aristide out of the power because he killed some people. And then, what now? He don't want to go.
And this weekend, the rebels brought in reinforcements, including an exiled leader of Haiti's notorious death squads that once terrorized this nation. Another opposition group is advocating nonviolent change. The recent violence marks a departure from the goodwill that greeted President Aristide a decade ago when the U.S. military returned him to power after he had been overthrown in a military coup. But 10 years later, Haiti is still the poorest country in this hemisphere. 70% of its 8 million people live in abject poverty. Now, Aristide is widely seen as a corrupt leader who abandoned his people. Today, he said, he will not resign. As the violence escalates, many fear that thousands of Haitians will take to boats, the way they did more than a decade ago, and head to Florida. Jeffrey Kaufman, ABC News, Port-au-Prince.
In Iraq today, U.S. military officials had more information about an attack that happened over the weekend in Fallujah. The U.S. had initially said some of the attackers were foreigners. They now say that all of them appear to be Iraqis. At least 25 people were killed, most of them Iraqi policemen, when a group of masked fighters attacked a police station and a security compound. It was another tough day in and around the Iraqi capital of Baghdad. 2 American soldiers were killed in separate explosions, and a child died when a grenade blew up in a schoolyard. Barely a day goes by without the discovery of an explosive device. It is harrowing work for Baghdad's only bomb squad. ABC's David Wright has this report from Baghdad.
Whenever a suspected bomb is found in Baghdad, these are the men who take the call. Whether it's a grenade tossed in a street corner or a suspicious car abandoned on a traffic circle, they break it down and check it out. As many as 50 calls a day.
The Iraqi police force has only this one bomb squad serving the entire city. And for every explosion you hear about, there are literally dozens of bombs planted around this city every single day.
Rockets and bombs and mines.
This entire cache was collected in less than a week. To defuse the bombs, they're equipped with this battered briefcase, including a broken hammer, a pair of pliers, and a couple screwdrivers.
They've got no robots, they've got no remote control, they have to do it in person, and that takes an awful lot of guts.
They keep asking for the sort of high-tech equipment their American counterparts use. They recently got this new toolkit, but no robots. There were 13 explosives experts on the bomb squad, now just 12. On Christmas morning, Lieutenant Ali Saleh was about to defuse his 5th bomb of the day when it exploded.
How much money are you paid to do this dangerous work?
$120 a month, Saleh says. The Iraqi police had requested additional danger pay for the bomb squad, but the U.S.-led interim government turned them down.
I brought him some candy and things from the PX, and I gave him an American flag as a sign of respect for him and what he's done for us.
The coalition's advisors to the Iraqi police force admit no American cop would work under these conditions.
They are brave, yes. They are heroes, yes. But we also should keep their life.
As it is, Lieutenant Saleh will get his salary for the rest of his life, even though his days on the bomb squad are obviously over. David Wright, ABC News, Baghdad.
When we come back, same-sex marriage, the debate in San Francisco and across the country. We'll take a closer look. The tax cheats defrauding the federal government and still working for the Pentagon. It's your money. And defending his passion, filmmaker Mel Gibson talks exclusively to ABC's Diane Sawyer.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by Ambien.
We're going to take a closer look tonight at the debate over same-sex marriage. 37 states have already banned such unions. Massachusetts may soon join that list. Now the issue has come to a head in San Francisco, where gay and lesbian couples have been lining up to get a license. ABC's Mike Soray has more.
Braving the rain and cold, hundreds of gay couples from around California and the country camped overnight outside San Francisco City Hall, waiting for the marriages to resume today.
It was freezing cold. Yeah, we couldn't sleep.
Volunteers joined city workers on their official day off to help process the paperwork and perform the marriages.
I now pronounce you spouses for life. You may kiss.
San Francisco started legalizing same-sex marriages last Thursday, but these marriages aren't likely to be recognized in other parts of the country.
It's not going to mean anything legally anywhere we go, but it is symbolic.
What is happening in San Francisco is clearly in violation of California state law, which allows marriage only between a man and a woman. When the courts reopen here tomorrow, the entire process could be stopped. The family rights groups suing to stop the marriages presented their final briefs today in what is expected to be the first of several legal challenges.
This is about municipal anarchy. This is about the city of San Francisco deciding that they're going to do whatever they want to do. They have no more rights to do this than to secede from the union.
These couples hope that what they are doing here will have national implications.
This will just speed up the process. It'll speed it up to the Supreme Court, and then they'll just say, you know, it's unconstitutional not to recognize equal rights.
By the end of the day, more than 2,000 same-sex couples are expected to have been married here, at least until tomorrow. Mike Soray, ABC News, San Francisco.
In Georgia today, state senators approved a constitutional amendment that would ban same-sex marriages. Lawmakers at the state capitol in Atlanta say the measure is a defense mechanism against the gay unions going on elsewhere. ABC's Steve Osunsami continues our closer look.
Yes, this is embarrassing. It ought to be embarrassing.
One legislator described it as a grenade thrown onto the Senate floor in time for the November election.
The Republican leadership is wasting our time trying to write discrimination into the Georgia Constitution.
But in the name of God and traditional family values, many senators said yes.
It's very clear that the sanctity of marriage in Georgia is between a man and a woman only. And I do not apologize for that.
The lawmaker who sponsored the amendment says the state's constitution must be changed to prevent the same-sex weddings taking place in San Francisco.
I don't think any of this would have even come to the fore had it not been for what we see in other states around the nation. What we see are judges making legislative or policy decisions. That's just not the way our system is meant to work.
4 states have already amended their constitutions, preventing judges from allowing same-sex marriages. 10 states are considering it, and at least 2 have proposed laws that would not recognize same-sex unions from other states. David Packwood and Earl Provin are a gay couple living in Atlanta, sometimes referred to as the gay capital of the South. They are not happy with today's vote.
Here I am. I've been in this city for 18 years, and I've paid taxes since I've been here.
Right. We'll take your money, but you're still a second-class citizen.
If the amendment also passes the state house, it will be put before voters in November. Steve Osunsami, ABC News, Atlanta.
When we come back, the fruits of deceit. The contractors cheating the government out of billions of dollars in taxes. Congressional investigators have uncovered stunning cases of government ineptitude. The General Accounting Office says contractors employed by the Pentagon have cheated the government out of $3 billion in taxes. But neither the Defense Department nor the IRS has done much about it. And it's your money. ABC's John Cochran has this report.
Investigators discovered 27,000 tax cheats are still doing business with the Pentagon.
The average guy out there should be really angry. I'm paying taxes. What, you're telling me that we are paying money to folks who then are not coming back and paying their obligations, and we continue to do it.
Tax abusers have made big profits doing everything from building and maintaining military facilities to supplying parts for weapons and aircraft, manufacturing uniforms, catering food, even providing services at military funerals. One contractor had not paid taxes for at least 10 years. He is now enjoying life in the Caribbean, where he cannot be extradited.
He sucked the money out of the company, left the country, and IRS was left with a $10 million unpaid tax.
The Pentagon continued to pay him even after he moved to the Caribbean. Investigators found this contractor was one of thousands who withheld money from their employees for payroll taxes, but never passed the money on to the Internal Revenue Service.
One contractor kept $1 million in payroll taxes and used it to buy a boat, several very nice cars, and a home.
The law permits the government to collect unpaid taxes from contractors by holding back part of their payments from the Pentagon. But the system is a flop. In 2002, the government should have collected at least $100 million. Instead, it collected a measly $332,000.
This is one of the worst examples of waste we've seen in Washington. It shows that the Pentagon and the IRS just don't care what happens with our tax dollars.
Pentagon officials admit they must do a better job of checking with the IRS to find out which contractors are cheating on taxes.
The department does not know or does not have a list of vendors who owe back taxes.
The Pentagon's record keeping is so bad, it's impossible to know how much defense contractors have cheated. So far, investigators know of at least $3 billion in uncollected taxes. But the real figure is much higher, and it's your money. John Cochran, ABC News, Washington.
And speaking of money, the New York Yankees just increased their payroll in a big way by acquiring seven-time All-Star Alex Rodriguez from the Texas Rangers. Rodriguez will be making $25 million a year. That is more than $155,000 per game. When we come back, Mel Gibson's Passion. He talks exclusively about his new film with our Diane Sawyer.
Tonight, Mel Gibson, Diane Sawyer, and the interview everyone's talking about. And tomorrow morning, the debate over Mel Gibson's controversial movie continues, only on Good Morning America.
After Mel Gibson's controversial new film, The Passion of Christ, has been coming under intense criticism for months now, the movie chronicles the last 12 hours of the life of Jesus, and some fear it could spark anti-Semitism. In an exclusive interview with ABC's Diane Sawyer, Gibson defends the motion picture.
Are you anti-Semitic?
No, of course not. And here's the other thing. For me, it goes against the tenets of my faith. To be racist in any form, to be anti-Semitic, is a sin. It's been condemned by one papal council after another. There's encyclicals on it. Which is, to be anti-Semitic is to be unchristian. And I'm not.
Do you think Mel Gibson is an anti-Semite?
No, I do not. No, I do not.
Do you believe this is an anti-Semitic movie?
No, I do not believe it's an anti-Semitic movie. I believe that this movie has the potential to fuel anti-Semitism, to reinforce it.
And what about that charge that Gibson, deliberately or not, is playing with fire? Critics pointing to images like the Jewish high priest Caiaphas, so powerful and repellent, and the large, bloodthirsty crowd. All echoes, the critics say, of what were called passion plays, which through the ages used to inflame Christians against their Jewish neighbors. Ghettos were sacked, the Jewish populations terrorized. Their fear is in a world in which horrible things have been done to the Jewish population.
Right.
That simply looking at these events will once again incite people toward, if not violence, animosity, prejudice.
I don't think so. I don't
vindictiveness.
I don't think you can say that. I mean, I watched Schindler's List, and what the Germans do, and that is horrible, But I don't hate Germans or want to hurt them or anything. I mean, if you go by that rationale, any story where one group of persons does something to another group of persons, I mean, you shouldn't put any of it on film.
You can see Diane Sawyer's full interview with Mel Gibson later tonight on a special edition of Primetime at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. And that's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. For all of us at ABC News, good night.